You are listening to Invest in the Future by Future Africa. Future Africa is a platform connecting mission driven innovators and investors looking to turn Africa's most difficult challenges into global business opportunities. Please note that the content of this podcast is not to be regarded as investment advice.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Future Africa Invest in the Future webinar. My name is Laura Kade. I'm part of the investment team here at Future Africa. We're very excited about tech startups. Over the last decade, we've seen increasing changes, tangible changes have been happening. And, the last year we saw a lot of interest in the continent in terms of increase in funding. So Africa Startup Fund, startup companies raised over 5 billion in equity funding. But we still see early stage founders saying there have been challenges with liquidity, access to funding, especially when it comes to women. So, that's the problem we're very intentional about solving here at Future Africa, where we're trying to back mission-driven founders that are solving hard problems. So, I'm going to introduce my guest here today. We have an amazing guest, like Ora mentioned, Sabrine and Ife. So Sabrine is the investment associate at Partech. Partech has invested in incredible companies like, Wave, which is a mobile money service that's a unicorn now, trade depot that's, essentially the engine of retail distribution. We also have, Ife, that's the investment principal at Berrywood Capital, investing in tech startups that have exponential growth. Ife was also the integral part of Microtraction, investing in companies like Chaka, Carrywise, just really exciting companies. So, the goal for today is really in two parts. We really want to do an insight into your career journeys so far, especially as women in venture capital. And the second part is really to do a deep dive into what venture capital companies are looking out for when investing in a startup. So throughout this whole conversation, if you have any questions, just write it in the Q&A box and we will definitely answer them. So to start off, we're going to be starting with Sabrine. I really want to, get an idea of your career journey so far, what steps you to where you are right now. Just talk us through everything.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the short introduction. So I'll just add on top of that, that I joined Partech 3 years ago. And for my story, I was born and raised in Senegal, where I am currently. And I lived here all my life. I went to study in Paris. When I finished school, I was 18 years old, studied, get a master in finance, corporate finance, and started my career in M&A before joining Partech in 2019. Maybe just a word about Partech. If you're not familiar with the firm, so Partech is a global venture capital firm with offices across Paris. So I was saying Partech is a venture capital firm with offices across Paris, Berlin, San Francisco, Dakar, and Nairobi. What's interesting is that at Partech, we invest cross-sector, cross-countries, cross-stages. We have different funds focused on seed, on venture, on growth, and now since 2019 on Africa, where I work. Globally, we invest between $200K up to $50 million in a broad range of technologies and businesses, and we have 2 billion of assets under management, more than 200 active portfolio companies in 38 countries, of which 14 now are valued at more than 1 billion. For the Partech Africa part, it's a dedicated fund focused on supporting African tech entrepreneurs from seed to Series C stages. Our fund was fully launched in 2019, and we raised $140 million to back talented African teams that are using technology to address large emerging opportunities. So we are a generalist tech fund. And as you said, we are proud investors of some companies that you know, such as Trade Depot, Wave, Yoko. And actually, we have exactly 16 companies right now in our portfolio. So that's me in a nutshell. Oh. And I can give the mic to Ife for the presentation and then continue with how I started VC.
Oh, definitely. Okay, so since you're going to try to Ife, so I'm actually very interested in Ife's journey because Ife started in people's operation and now you've transitioned into, being an investment principal. I think that's very exciting because a lot of people are very interested in venture capital, and if they don't have a traditional background, they're looking, how do we transition into that space?
For me, there's still stories before people operations. I finished uni 2011, finished mandatory service 2013, and then I joined a real estate firm actually as biz dev. I was frustrated on the job, so I decided to resign. And I was just at home. And my plan was, let me stay at home. If my uncles and aunties visit often enough and they see me just sitting at home, they'll do something about it. I was at home for 5 months. I'll never try that again. So after that, I finally got into one of the commercial banks in Nigeria. I was there for 3 years, I think. And then they shut off a digital arm and I joined that. So for the longest time, I was actually in operations, customer service, customer resolutions. And then my office was relocated to Victoria Island. And I think I just started getting curious about technology, especially because the company had created the digital arm. It's like, what's all the fuss about, right? I decided I wanted to change jobs. And so I went on LinkedIn and started shooting shots. Ooh. And that was the beginning. I'm serious. I started shooting shots. I think I was sending maybe 20 cold messages every day. And my plan was, so I actually have a lengthy Medium post about this somewhere. And I made sure it was really short. So immediately you open your LinkedIn DM, you can see my name, what I want. Hello, how are you? I'm this. I'm looking to change jobs. If you have any opportunities in your company, let me know. And I was just shooting shots around them. So there are some commercial banks, merchant banks, tech companies that I could identify at the time. I was a newbie, so I didn't really have an idea. I will just try a Google search and just, try to follow articles. And then I got into TMAPT, really great time. I think TMAPT was really responsible for me getting plugged into the developer network in Lagos. And then as a TMAPT, moved from operations to human resources, people management, developer recruitment. And then I just started, so what I started reading changed. And then I started finding out TechCrunch and I started reading articles. I found out TechPoint as well at the time. And I was just wondering, what is this tech? What is tech about, right? So coming from somebody that was, the day I decided to move to TMAPT, my family members were very confused, some of them, especially because they were used to traditional paths. Get in a commercial bank, you stay in a commercial bank, and you wait for their promotion cycles, right? Tech was really new at the time, and it was like, startups, will they be able to pay your salary next month? Are you sure you'll be fine, right? So when I decided to move on from TMAPT, again, it was LinkedIn I turned to. And I was following Yele at the time, actually. Yele Badimosi is founding partner of Microtrack. And I just shot him a message on LinkedIn. And he was like, oh, hi, great to meet you. And from there, I started having meetings from the team. So now shooting shots did not mean it didn't give me an automatic pass into the team. I went through a rigorous selection process, met with all the team members, separate meetings, separate questions and all of that. And then, we are. That was how I got into VC specifically, shooting shots, taking chances.
I mean, that sounds very interesting. And it must have been challenging as well. How did you prep for all of this, especially people that are interested in going into VC, because it can be very challenging, all the case studies, etc. How did you prep for them?
So because MT was really focused on early stage at the time, it was most of the assessments were really about how, number one, how helpful I would be to portfolio companies, how I thought about companies, how I assessed companies, what seemed interesting to me at the time. I think for a lot of job roles, it is, you need somebody to have curiosity, right? They need to be interested in learning by themselves. A lot of things can be learned early on. After that, I think me at MT year one versus me at MT year two, definitely different people. I developed way better. I'd gotten in the groove of things. I was more valuable to the portfolio founders, to the team. I got way better at assessing companies and all of that. So I think initially, when you find somebody that is willing to take a chance on you, that's really what it's about. Shoot your shots. Hopefully somebody is willing to take a chance on you. And I kept sending messages. So I was, to beat the fear of rejection, I was sending like 20 cold messages a day. And the hope was like, if I send 20, if 18 people just, air me, at least one person would be like, oh, I send your CV.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Go ahead.
No, I said I can imagine you're shooting your shot essentially.
Yes, I was, because I actually got a lead with a merchant bank. I got one for a product role. They were trying to do a digital bank as well. At one of the commercial banks, the really legendary ones. Okay, so there was Team Apps, and there were a few, opportunities that actually came up. LinkedIn people are actually nice. Just stop sending them really long messages. I can try to dig it up, but it was probably 7 lines, including the introduction and the end. I just sent 20 per day. So I'm increasing the number of my shots so that even when rejection comes, I won't really feel it. I'll be able to focus on the 5 people that responded versus the 50 that did not pay me any mind. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. That sounds great. What about you, Sabrine? Did you face any challenges, like, going into venture capital in Africa? Coming back, how was that for you?
Yeah, actually, my story is also linked somehow to LinkedIn. So on my side, I graduated from France, and after living all my life in Senegal, most of the people that go to study abroad try to work for a few years in Paris, in London, with those elite jobs that we think are the best. So I did this 3 months analyst program in London in a prestigious bank. I got the offer to come back at full time 3 months later. So I had this 3 months lag between the two, and I decided to come back home to spend this time with my family. It was just the moment where Partech was releasing all those articles about this new fund in Africa and headquartered in Dakar. So I was really curious about it and just wanted to understand what was the rationale and why was Partech interested in Africa, because obviously I wanted to prepare my comeback home. I always knew I wanted to come back after a few years, but it wasn't for now. It was for a few years later. So just spending my time understanding what was opportunities in Senegal, I pinged someone on LinkedIn, someone from the Partech Africa team, just telling him hey, just curious about what you're doing at Partech. Can we have a quick call, a coffee? And he answered. We had this call. We had another conversation. From one thing to another, I was having interviews with them. And to be honest, I had zero idea of what VC was before joining Partech. So I really discovered it during the process I had with Partech. So obviously by spending time with the team, and I realized like how exciting the opportunity was, how exciting VC was.
Yeah.
Every day is different, you know, you manage so many tasks at the same time. I mean, you are sector agnostic. We are sector agnostic at Partech, so we work on a lot of different sectors. So we speak to a lot of people every day. And compared to M&A, where you are more on the advisor side, you are exposed so quickly to different sectors, different stage, different countries. So yeah, the same day I can speak to a founder building an agri-tech in Egypt. The minute after, I have a call with a fintech in Nigeria. So this is really powerful. So there is no limit in what you can learn during a day, and I really like it.
That definitely sounds very exciting. Like you're learning from different sectors, but it can also be very challenging as well. Like how do you scale up all the information you need for each sector to understand it fully, like in that whole breadth? So like, what do you do to ensure like, you know, you can speak like critically on every sector, especially because you're like talking to different people?
Yes, that's really, really exciting, actually.
Okay. Okay, so everyone, if you have any questions, please send us the questions in Q&A box. We're definitely very excited to have some of your questions. Already someone asked, what are the opportunities for a legal professional in VC? So what would you suggest for someone that's in legal and wants to transition into the venture capital space?
Mind if I take that?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
So I think that a few VCs are very lean, so they may not have bandwidth or resources to admit somebody in-house. One thing you could try to do is to be a lawyer to startups. A couple of problems now, there is help founders, proofread documents, generate agreements, make sure that they're not signing away their inheritance, you know, things like that. So you could start from that side. But if you're able to get into a bigger VC firm, yeah, those guys have a few in-house legal resources, you know, that they can accommodate and they can paid work, you know.
Yeah.
So definitely a bigger guy. I think there was another question you had asked earlier, how you are able to, you know, go from conversation to conversation, especially when you're sector agnostic. I think one thing that really helps is connecting with other associates, principals, analysts within your network. So Sabrine and I have had, I think, at least one conversation this year, and it was just catching up. You know, you're in Dakar, I'm in Nigeria, Anglophone, Francophone. We are not even in this, we are both sector agnostic, but we are not even in the same terrain. I wouldn't,
so how did you meet each other? Like how did you guys meet each other first time?
This network, we belong to
like,
some
WhatsApp groups, LinkedIn, like, you know, you try as a VC, like to increase your coverage, to increase like your knowledge in the sector. You try to speak to everyone in the ecosystem, and we always have like very interesting discussion between us that are very helpful. For instance, we have portfolio in we have like companies in our portfolio. I can go and talk about them, explain like the model, what they are doing. Ife will do the same with me. She'll come and push like some companies that she likes. So we'll have like a discussion about it. And that's what I was saying, like you just learn every day. So sometimes you just discover like a new space you are new to, and you try to like spot some people who understand better than you do the space, and you just listen and you just learn.
Definitely leveraging each other. If I wanted to do a Francophone investment, or if something in Francophone Africa seemed interesting, I would definitely reach out to Sabrine, because Nigeria is not Senegal. I can't just assume that the peculiarities in Nigeria apply to Senegal. So it would be, oh, hi Sabrine, have you heard about this company? Is this something that, you know, is really worthwhile in Senegal? Is it a real problem? And then she lends her voice. Same thing with her. She's like, oh, have you guys seen this company already? And sometimes it's about deal flow. maybe she sees a company that is too early. Since they do 200K checks upwards, right? Some deals may just be too early for her. So she may shoot it over. If I like this company, but they are too early for us. And in that way, you're able to have mutual discussions. And then, yeah, just keep the conversation flowing within your network. That really helps.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think two things I definitely picked out from that is, first, all countries are different. Even though we're all in Africa, every country is different. That's why you have to have this conversation. And the second thing is really on deal flow. So it takes me really to the next question I really have. So what trend are you noticing in terms of deals? Like over the last year, we've seen a lot about fintech. What are we thinking is going to happen in the next year, this year, next year? Where are we moving towards in terms of trend? So Sabrine, if you actually want to answer that, because you're part of Partech, you have your reports. What are you thinking? What are you predicting as well?
So if you read the report, you know that fintech remains a massive area of growth and opportunity. So we are super excited about fintech, and maybe one area that we kind of dig into last year was digital banking revolution, as seen in Europe, in Asia. I think that this banking revolution hit half Africa in the past years. You now have like fintechs who focus on providing like access to digital services through smartphone. You have also this trend of neobank that are like helping people to now be banked. And naturally, they have like a vast potential on the continent. And even for banked people, they offer a better customer service. Like even if I have my like traditional bank, I can go and subscribe to this like digital bank for my day-to-day activity. And just because like the app is so seamless, and that I like to use it for like payment, for like saving. And saving is actually the second trend I really like about fintech. I mean, it's when looking at companies like PiggyVest, Corywise, super exciting trend, because obviously you don't have like many ways of savings in saving your money in Africa. Like if you keep it into your bank account, nothing will happen. So you're not like having anything out of it. You have like all those like apps that are gamified, that are super cool to use. You have different options. I find it very interesting. And on top of that, you have like investment app where even if you're not like a financial savvy and you haven't done like a master in finance, you can still use it because it's so simple and the experience is so great that everyone can use it. Like I could give this to my grandma and she can like invest in US stock market. So I found it very interesting. And I'd say that what's interesting is that other sectors are also warming up. Health tech is one of them. We invested in Reliance Health. We are super excited about this one. It's a company that is providing a healthcare quality for millions of patients in Nigeria. So due to the pandemic, we saw this growth in health tech over the few years. And this even accelerated the use of telemedicine, of like virtual care, drug delivery, and all this is fueling like investor interest in this sector.
Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense. So for you, I mean, there's fintech, there's healthcare, but what else? One more, what other sectors do you think are also very exciting? Because everyone is like, everyone is going into fintech. We saw a boom really last year. So it's like, what more can we expect? What other sectors do you find exciting? I mean, aside from, healthcare as well.
Yes, so definitely we looked at a lot of like edtech companies. We are sector agnostic, and actually we have a limit on how many fintechs we can do. So we always try to look at like other sectors. We are super excited about edtech. We did 2 deals in edtech. In Gebea in Ethiopia, and also a company in the Middle East called Almentor. We also looked at logistics. We actually recently, we've done a company in logistics, but more in the software, enterprise software logistics, which is super interesting. So yeah, we really looked at, we look at all the sectors. Like we have really no limit on that.
I'm definitely very excited about head tech as well. It's very interesting space, especially when it comes to talent, especially like, we're evolving into, remote work. So we have to think about talent, we have to think about education, how do we educate people in terms of like, tech companies, because that's where we're moving towards. And, traditional education has to sort of change as well. So I think that space is definitely something to disrupt as well. So, this was for you, Ife. How do you find really great startups? Because, how do you find them? Before you invest in them, it's like, how do you identify the good ones to go for? What do you look out for essentially?
Okay, so on finding companies, sometimes it will depend on the methods that your firm uses. So for example, if you run a year-round application program, some folks like accelerators would handle startups in cohorts. So maybe they open applications in batches, filter down, assess them, select, and maybe drill down to 10, and that leads to a demo day. But usually though, I think folks are focusing on channels that almost guarantee results. So the channels with the highest conversion, and usually that's referrals from other founders in their portfolio. Or referrals from other investors, like the example I gave with Sabrine earlier. Somebody comes, these guys are too early for me, or they're too late for me, and you assess them independently. On assessing companies, because I'm focused on VC, and VC is usually ROI driven, right? You're looking for that one company that is able to return the fund if possible. So there's that focus on technology. So usually when I am checking, I am usually in favor of a team versus a solo founder. Does not mean I would kick out a solo founder, right? But building a company is hard. It's better if you have somebody to support you. And so usually you'd see that somebody is focused on product side or technology side, and they are focused on executing and making sure they have a live product. The other person is focused on the business side, growing the business, and facing fundraising conversations, while the other person can just build. Also, usually for early stage investments, especially, it's important that there's a technology person on the team. Especially when you're getting a 50K check or a 25K check. Outsourcing technology is difficult. And then you would end up with maybe some team in, I don't know, Russia or China. So there's a language barrier. You are not in the same time zone. And these guys would usually intentionally use technology stacks that you cannot find, cheap talents, if you find any talents in Nigeria. So even if you decide, I'm not using you guys anymore, right? You're on your own, you are basically stuck with them. And they are not cheap. So imagine getting a 150K check and you used, I don't know, 70K to fund a team in Russia, and then they're building for a product in Nigeria. Who is even to say they would execute, what you're looking for, something that would focus on Nigerians. So also, I look out for MVPs. You can't tell me that you slept, you woke up, you had a revelation, and you want to, idea stage, you've not even arranged the idea. If you come and finance, you have to show commitment, right? You've put in blood, you've put in sweat, you've put in tears. There's an MVP. There's something that, even if it's your family members, there has to be market reaction. Even if it's your family members, your cousins, people have tested the products end to end. These are the results. You don't have to be revenue generating, but there should be, if I ask you questions, how would you make money? Don't tell me that you are thinking or an impact. This is one thing I've also found is that not every company will be venture backable. You may be better suited for impact investments, and that is fine. So you may have a product that the UN would really appreciate, or the UNDP, WHO, you know, organizations like that, and they finance that and you're good. But to a venture capitalist, it's like, I don't see this scaling. Do you understand? So people should also understand what they're building. So back to the original question, technology, definitely a technology person that is competent should be on the team, not I've not yet gotten into university. I've never built any projects. I've not done anything, but I'm a CTO, right? Also traction, get people using your product, build something, let it be a problem that it is obvious that it's not just, you're not solving for yourself. So when Cowrywise, Piggyverse came up, it was obvious that people were looking for, other ways to fractionalize investments, or just, they did not understand bonds, or it was too difficult. They did not understand treasury bills. They needed better interest rates on their capital, right? So these guys just came and simplified everything, and it just made sense. That was a problem for everybody. And of course, they were able to scale their products. Versus, I want to walk to the kitchen. I need something to do. That's my personal problem. Nobody's going to take me seriously. So I think those are the key things for me. Co-founding team, technology, traction. You should be building a technology product, something that is obviously scalable. And you're not just building for Nigeria or for your local. It should be very easy to maybe partner with, so you're able to get in contact with somebody like Sabrine, and she maybe links you up with somebody that is an executor in Senegal. Your product will be just a few tweaks, but your product can work in Senegal. Versus the only place it can function is Lagos, and that's the end of it. Makes it difficult for product scale.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I really want Sabrine to jump on this as well. Like, in terms of, are there other things that you also look out for in the startups? Like, are there problems? Are there multiple drivers that you're like, okay, this is the one we want to invest in? Like, critically, like key points that you're like, okay, the team, I mean, like Ife mentioned, the team, the MVP. What else are you very particular about when you're analyzing startups to invest in?
Yeah, I think to join what Ife is saying, we cannot stress enough how important is a team in our process. At the stage we are investing in, we invest in humans, we invest in a team. What has this person has done in the past? Do they have like a clear understanding of the pain point? Do they have like the right background to address this problem? This is like super important for us. So we look for like A+ team. It's always a question we ask ourselves. Are they like an A+ team? Do we want to back those guys? Do we want to, would we be like proud if they succeed? We have like a clear framework on how we assess like a team. And the second point is the market. Obviously, we want to build like unicorns. We want to build huge companies. So is the market big enough for this? If you're solving like a problem that is not touching everyone and is really like I mean, I can give some example of startups that are solving problems that we always assess the market, and we try to look for 1 billion plus market when we invest in company. And for you to address a huge market, you need to be like solving a real need in the market. So that's very important, and we spend a lot of time understanding the market when we invest in a company. Those are like in the order, the two most important points that we assess when looking at the deal. And then we look at like the product, the model, product market fit, go to market. Is it scalable? Does it make sense? What's your moat around the product. And then the last point is the momentum. And obviously, as we invest mostly in Series A, Series B, and like C+ companies, we need to see like a traction. Even if it's not revenue, we need to see like a growing traction, a growth rate that is important. That are like the 4 points. And obviously, we also look at like exit path as is like it's the end game. And we also look at like, we are very cautious about like the deal structure and if it makes sense. So that's are like the main points.
I mean, that sounds really great. I think all your points sound, you're looking at the team, you're looking at product. I think it also reinforces like what Ife has said. You were going to mention some companies, like, these are companies that you believe, it can scale up. So,
yeah, I'm thinking about some example, but I mean, I will not drop names because I
exactly
like personal. Like I can think that a market is not big enough, but I can be wrong, so I'll not drop.
Yeah,
no, I mean like markets that are big enough. So companies that are solving big problems, as an example, and how they're able to reach like a lot of people, like large markets. So people get like a sense of what you mean by, okay, are you actually solving a big problem, or you're solving a smaller problem?
Sure. If I take the example of Wave in Senegal that is like tackling mobile money, obviously it's a huge problem, and Wave has been able to cover more than 60% of the adult population that is using like mobile money. So it's huge. Every day people are using Wave. It became part of their life. And you can see that they've managed to achieve high growth only in Senegal. That is like a kind of small market for investors. And because they are tackling like a real need in the market. So that's a kind of company that that is operating in a huge market that is scalable from a country to another. They can go to every African countries with the same product, and this will work.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. It does. And I want to even talk about women founders as well. We talk a lot in like globally how, women founders are not backed enough. So I really want to get your perspective, Ife and Sabrine, just what are you guys doing in terms of backing more women founders? And, is there any sector or thing that you think women can be more focused on as well, just in general? What are your points, or what are your viewpoints on them? So if you want to start, Sabrine or Ife, I think Ife, you should start.
So on finding female founders, I think again it boils down to partnerships. Many times they may not be accessible to you, but they are accessible to some people somewhere. So for example, in Nigeria/Africa, it's something First Check is very passionate about. And so if you know that you are interested in intentionally founding female founders, one thing that I would expect from my end, for example, is reaching out to the managers of First Check Africa, and see whether or not they've already invested in the company. We're interested to learn more. And just independently evaluate the team. The fact that one VC hasn't funded you does not mean that nobody would fund you. So I think it's partnerships like that. Just look for organizations that invest in or train folks that match your thesis. So if you're looking for impact-driven work, you're looking for social work, there are accelerators, there are incubators that do that. So when you find those incubators, you find those accelerators, you punch into their training sessions or their demo days, or you exchange deal flow with them rather. It becomes easy. Then you see they are female founders. It now becomes a matter of, are they in line with your investment thesis? From there. That's one very smart way to look at it.
Okay. Sabrine, what are your viewpoints on
so what we notice is that if we look at the funding right now in Africa, actually last year in our report, 80% of the female founders in Africa raised a seed round. So we really expect to see them upgrade to Series A, to Series B. And what I personally do is follow like women founders from the beginning. So I'm sure that when like they need help to like evolve and reach some milestones, I'm here to help. So when it's a moment for us to invest, we will do it. So we are really proactive on that, having like our list of female founders, trying to reach out, doing like outbound sourcing just on like female founders, trying to like know them all. So we know, even if it's too early for us, we are kind of building the relationship. And one way that Ife mentioned is to get close to seed investors that are doing this job, and that can like help us get access to more like deals with the female co-founders. And that is something we really want to improve, and it's really important for us as Partech.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense because, you know, one of the questions we actually have here is someone saying, you know, aside from funding, what can you do to encourage more women founders? So I think being supportive, you know, helping them through that process in getting to Series A, Series B is really definitely very helpful. And it's something that we also do here at Future Africa, where we're trying to like support as much as we can in terms of talent, just being a supportive instrument, even introductions as well. Okay, so I think that's great. So that's really most of the questions that we have. I also really wanted to talk more on biases on founders. So, you know, there is this idea that founders have to be a certain, you know, come from a certain pedigree when it comes to education. How do you try to eliminate that sort of bias and, you know, accept different founders? What do you think about that?
I can go first. Sabrine?
Yeah,
okay.
Please go ahead.
So I think especially for early stage investments, the only thing that matters is what you can do. And I think Sabrine talked about this earlier. It's your competence. What have you built in the past? Same way these days, you know, during my time, it's crazy that I'm saying my time, but during my time, you know, you had to have a BSc, an MSc. Now, folks aren't even going to the university. 19, 20, 21, they are legit CEOs. They are on the unicorn path. They're building actual products, that raising funds, closing out big.
Do you want to help out, Sabrine?
Yeah, sure. I can maybe speak about like how we try to assess founder, eliminating the bias that we could have.
Yeah.
And on that, like a part of our process is always to have like 2 pairs of eyes during our investment process. So we make sure that several experienced people have met with the funding team to avoid like, personal bias. We are really attentive to like body language, behavior, and we try to create like a favorable context and atmosphere so that people don't feel they are facing a jury, and they can be more relaxed, they can be more themselves. And we, in our process, investment process, we assess the founders all the way, like how structured they are, how rigorous, how intuitive the team is, what makes the team solid and lasting. We like to assess the dynamics between the funding team. We ask ourselves, like, do we believe we can help them in their journey? So there's a lot of questions we ask ourselves before investing in a team. And we do that by trying to eliminate all the bias. And that's super important. And we really don't care about like the university background, or even I don't even know like where our founder have studied, to be honest. It's not like really important. I'm not even sure I know what they've done really before launching their startups. Some of them went out of university, as Ife was mentioning, and it's okay. I mean, it's really okay. They know their business, they studied, they've done market research before. So you don't need to spend like 20 years building, like you don't need to spend 20 years in the insurance space before launching your insurtech.
Yeah,
you just need to understand the pain point, improve like the customer experience, have a lean distribution. So we don't really look at that, and we have a clear like framework to assess founders, and that really helped to answer the question I was mentioning. Are we backing a plus team that are resilient and they can like just go all the way to like building a huge company?
Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I agree with that. So we have a question here that says, how much do you need to make your first investment? And I want to ask Ife, because Sabrine, you already mentioned you're doing ticket size from 200K, but Berrywood, what is the ticket size there?
Maybe just on this, so at Partech globally, we start at 200K, but for Partech Africa, we start around 1.5 million. Just to give some clarifications. Okay,
that makes a lot of sense.
I was actually responding to that, but I think my understanding of the question was different. Nengi, can you please confirm? Are you saying you want to start investing in startups and you're wondering how much you need to get into a startup? I think that's how. Okay, yes. So it will depend on who you're investing with. Some companies would. So if you are investing with a regular VC, usually you need to come in as what we call an LP, a limited partner. Firms would usually have a minimum ticket size. So maybe some would say for individuals from $25,000, from $50,000, from $30,000, $10,000. If you're a founder, it really depends on the fund. So you can talk to folks like Future Africa, like Microtraction, Ingressive Capital, Ventures Platform. Really early guys that write maybe 25K, 50K checks in the ecosystem. So if you're going with syndicates, depending on the syndicate, some would allow you come on board from $5,000, $1,000. And I think Future Africa is also giving exactly. So Future Africa allows you to do from 2,500. Some would, I think, allow you to do from $1,000. That's about, we don't even know what the exchange rate is today, but let's say 1.2 million or 1.1 million. Some would say 5K. So it really depends on who you are going with. You can look for syndicates such as, I think Future Africa has a section of that. Future Africa, Kickoff Africa, Oak Fund, Rally Cap Global as well. Or you can go for the VC institutions, Microtraction and Co, that would allow you to come on board as an individual limited partner. So yeah.
Oh, thank you, Ife. That's like actually very insightful. Really helps. I'm sure everyone is writing down all the venture capital, because we have a number of people that have asked, like, how do you reach out to VC companies? And, you know, we sort of addressed it throughout this conversation, where you can reach out through LinkedIn, through referrals, they're just different ways. If you have other startup founders that the company has invested in and you ask them to, you know, do a referral for you, I'm sure you can reach out to them in that way. So someone asked here, what makes investors or VC companies reject a funding idea? I think we already touched on that, but if anyone wants to just expatiate on it as well.
I think that you should, some funds have their information public on how they think about investments. So it's best you go to check before you apply or before you reach out. So for example, if somebody tells you I only invest in tech startups, if you don't have a tech element, don't you could, I guess, you are shooting your shots, but understand that they have a certain way that they are thinking about investments. So they are focused on tech. You have some folks that are focused on SMEs. Some people would, so I and Sabrine, our firms are sector agnostic, which means that regardless of what your company does, we would listen to you at least, but there are some that aren't. So some will tell you that we are fintech focused. I think investors like QED investors, for example, are fintech focused. So when you know you're a fintech firm, face fintech guys. If you know that what you're doing has social impact, look for folks that they are actually impact investors on the continent. Look out for those guys to minimize your chances of a no. So that's how I'll think about that.
I think that makes a lot of sense as well. So you want to look at other startup companies that raise money, so you have a sense of like what other VC companies are investing in them as well. So we have sort of answered some of these questions in different times. So someone asks, what are the skills or other resources that will be helpful to build a career in venture capital?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I think what's really important is, there's not, what I discovered during my career is that there's no like specific subject you can learn in school for being a VC. Obviously, depending on which stage you want to be at, like very early stage. For instance, if you are at very early stage, you don't really need, I think, to have like extensive financial knowledge. You don't need to know how to build like financial models, for instance. And if you are like more across investors, you can need like more of a financial background. And what's really important is to be able to build like relationship with some founders, to build a network, and to have this intuition and spot the right founders at the right moment, because obviously you don't want to miss them when they are raising a round. So it's really important to have that. I say it's more like a human touch that cannot be like taught in school. That's really important. And yeah, you have that, you have some financial background, and yeah, I think like you need some negotiation skills as well that you will learn during the process.
And I think that you make really great points. But if throughout your process, did you do any programs? Do you know of any thing that can actually help as well, or you were just able to get it, like just intuition, like Sabrine is saying? You just
so definitely echo what Sabrine is saying. There were some books I found helpful: Secrets of Sand Hill Road, The Business of Venture Capital. I could only get that one. Most of these are available on Amazon, or you could check Roving Nights if you're in Nigeria. The third one was Venture Deals, How to Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer and Your Venture Capitalist. So those ones really help. There are also some Medium folks. So usually if I hear something or there's something I say I don't understand, I will just do a search on Medium. And usually funds like A16Z, Sequoia, and some other ones on Trade Capital, they have like publications on Medium where they write. So sometimes just random Google searches or random searches on Medium. On Scribd as well, Scribd, they have like a ton of soft copies. So you just pay about 5,000 naira subscription per month and you just have access. So if you want to learn about mergers and acquisitions, venture capital, for Venture Deals, I think the audio version is on there. Business of Venture Capital too, the audio version is on Scribd. So just read, and as Sabrine said, build your network so that by the time you read something and you're engaging in a conversation, you can really understand what you read means, and then things begin to make sense in your head because you can tie them to examples. So definitely leverage network of analysts, associates, principals that you have access to. Join WhatsApp groups. These ones are really important. There are some channels on Slack as well, even on WhatsApp sometimes. Engage folks, and that's a really good
Well,
really
how
good.
do you, I mean, how do you find this WhatsApp groups or Slack channels? I think it's also like the challenges for a number.
Yeah, so usually I think you have to start with one person, and sometimes you have to ask outright.
Yeah.
And sometimes, so you and I can be speaking, and Sabrine is there, and we are talking about something, and Sabrine will be like, "What WhatsApp group is that?" You know, and
Yes.
right there and then you make a request.
I will ask you right after this call.
So that happens a lot. I think sometimes you meet a Sabrine, and then a Sabrine tells you, "Oh, there's this channel that, you know," and then you link it, you join that group, and from there there's another group, and you know, you join a couple of those. So yeah, there are definitely a few groups, but on joining them, you need to start with one person. And just relationships take time, right?
Yeah.
There's some people I've met via Slack channels or WhatsApp groups, and we have become really good friends today. It's amazing. So definitely just let time, you know, pass and help develop that relationship, and sometimes reach out. So this was really sad, but Sabrine was going to be in Nigeria about a month ago, and we had already set up something, you know, we are meeting here, we're doing this, we're doing that. Our friendship has been virtual so far. So if
I'm coming next week, by the way.
So yeah, so I'm definitely going to make time out to see her, right? And if I was going to be in Senegal, I'll reach out to Sabrine, where are you? And we'll try to meet up. And putting faces to these friendships also help keeping connections. So yeah, that's my feedback on that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Just need one person to do the introduction. It's like a ripple effect. Ife and Sabrine, it's very exciting. You can definitely follow us on all our social media platforms and Africa Future. And then for everyone that registered for this webinar, we're going to send the live on podcast to you, as well as the YouTube is going to come up in a few days. You can also check our website, Future Africa /collective, on how we invest as well. And if you want to join the collective, that would be great. It's very interesting things we're doing here at Future Africa. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining. Have a great day.
Thank you, Sabrine. Thank you
for having us.
It was a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to that Invest in the Future episode. Please follow us on social media. Our handle is @AnAfricanFuture on all platforms. You can join Future Africa to co-invest in these innovators who are turning Africa's biggest challenges into global business opportunities by joining the Future Africa Collective, our exclusive community of co-investors. Please find more information and apply at future.africa/collective. Thank you for listening once again.